Buddy, welcome to the next session at WorkflowCon 2024, where we are doing everything that we can to free up your time so that you can have a wonderful life work balance. So, my topic for this session is what I call my tax time tune up, perfecting your year end books. And what I'm going to be showing you are the techniques that I use when it's January and we're tying up people's books and I'm having conversations with our clients to make sure that their data is accurate and ready for taxes so that they pay the right amount of taxes. And now I have to fess up to something that this is actually 30 minutes of a 2-hour class that I teach. And there'll be a little pop up at some point for you that if you wanted to see the full class, you can. So what I'm going to be doing in this class is I'm going to be showing you the top 10 places where I find errors in the books and just like short, quick tricks for how to solve those issues. So, this is absolutely perfect for those who are solo practitioners where you don't have a team of people. This is just literally like boom, 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 how to look through your files. So I'm going to start with why do a spring cleaning and talk about some of the tools in QBOA for doing that bookkeeping and then my 10 steps. And I also want to point out that in the handouts, in the resources in your interface, I do have a 10-point checklist, which is a really pretty infographic version of some of this same content. If you have any questions, you can head over to the Q&A and ask questions. I'll do my best to answer them, but like I said, this is a 30-minute distillation of a 2-hour class, so I'm gonna be, like, coming at you with a fire hose as we do this content. So let's go ahead and dive in. While you're all coming in and getting settled, my name's Alicia. If you haven't met me before, I'm the owner of the Royal Wise Owls at royalwise.com. And Owls stands for the on demand web based learning solution. And basically, what I do is teach people how to use QuickBooks, whether it's your clients, your firm, or big accounting firms as well. I'm the co-host of the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast. Hector Garcia is my podcast partner, and so you can go check that out anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever. I'm a top 50 women in accounting from Ignition. I'm a top 10 pro advisor from Insightful Accountant. And I have a master's in teaching because I love explaining things. And been a computer geek ever since I was a little kid. So teaching people how to use QuickBooks is my happy place. All right, let's go ahead and take one of our polls. And so let me know. Oh, it's not working. Show on stage. Right. I think I got that right. How much experience do you have with these kinds of cleanups? Is this something you've never done before? Do you have deep experience with it? Tell me what your experience is. And so it looks like we are like almost completely split here between your experience levels. So, for those of you who are nuns, I'm going to be giving you a great punch list. For those of you who have done a few, I'm going to be giving you some nuggets to help focus your attention. And for those of you who are pros, I am hoping that I show you a couple little nuggets where you're like, I never thought of that. Awesome. Thank you. So hopefully everybody will get something out of today's session. So let me take a drink of water while you finish getting your vote in for your CPE, and I'm going to start rolling. Okay, closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, yep. So we're pretty split there. All right, close the poll, back to the stage, and next. Okay. Now, When I do these cleanups, I do them with 2 different audiences in mind. One is obviously the accountant because it's tax time. And I've found that accountants fall into 2 categories. Some of them will look through the books and look through the transactions and move things around, hopefully not by journal entry, hopefully by using the reclassify tool. And they'll get the books the way that they want to see them before running taxes. But I have also run into accountants who just take what you give them and plug the numbers into their tax software because, as far as they're concerned, they don't provide those services and they trust that you are on top of your books. So I can't tell you how many clients have come to me for these cleanups. And then we wind up going back and amending the previous year or 2 years because they weren't doing things right. And it's these techniques I'm about to show you which clue me in, "Hey, wait, something is amiss here." The other benefit of it is nooks and crannies to explore. It gives business owners a place to learn about their company and find out different ways of thinking about their numbers. Because I get a lot of like, "Oh my god, I never thought about it that way." And that when you know about your business, that's when you can be powerful within it. I love the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, which is that 20% of your inputs are responsible for 80% of your outputs. So if you can identify what your 20 best customers have in common, and then you do more of that, and then you will grow your business. Or which 20% of your products are responsible for your either best margins or highest sales, and then you sell more of those products and services, and then you see your business grow. Okay. So, the first thing that I want to do is show off some of the tools that are in QBOA to help you with this. What I'm going to be showing you are outside the tools, but this is always my first place to start. And the very first one is under Accountant Tools. Check out the reports options right here. If you have been not looked at that, this is going to like blow your socks off. This section right here, the report and tool defaults. Out of the box, QBO gives you the date range of last month. And for some of my customers, that's what they need. But the vast majority of people that I work with in my solo firm would rather see year to date. So I changed this to year to date. And then that way, the moment they run a P&L or a balance sheet or any report, that's the default. And that way you don't have to set it every single time you do something. And whatever their basis is for taxes, even if they're cash based, I'll come in here and I'll change this to accrual based. And then that way I can see the reports based on their unpaid invoices and their unpaid bills and the real reality of what's going on for the company. But because the company itself in the settings is cash based, that's what all the tax filing reports are going to be based on. So this is an easy way of deciding which one is more important on your day-to-day reports without affecting your tax basis. So I usually wind up here this year to date. I also want to point out that in this reports tools, you get this giant list of all of your balance sheet accounts. I'm going to be talking about reconciling, but I want you to remember this screen. So when I say, "Hey, remember that list that we saw in reports options?" Here it is. I look at reconciled as of, and this gives me full access to make sure that all of my balance sheet accounts are reconciled. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk about that part a little bit later. The next thing that I want to show you is in the left-hand sidebar that this client overview. This is when you are logged in as an accountant user. You can see all of the information about their company's setup. You can see what apps they have connected. So if you're looking at weird data, sometimes it's because they have an integration that they didn't know about or forgot about or needs to be updated. Then you get to see the banking activity and how many unaccepted transactions there are in their banking feed. This should be completely up to date, and the number of unreconciled transactions should be, what's left over. Okay, I'm getting too far into the weeds for the half an hour that I have, but that's a sign of the things that I do in that other class. And we can, if Davida, if you could put up that little call to action, that would be handy. All right. The overview also gives you access to common issues. Is there stuff in undeposited funds? Do you have uncategorized assets? If you have uncategorized assets, that means that your transfers in the banking feed worked like ships passing in the night, and one of them went to uncategorized asset and another one went to uncategorized asset instead of being matched together. So I always go into this and I go fix those transactions that are here. There should be nothing in uncategorized asset. Same thing with uncategorized income and expense. That's a sign that they were just clicking things in the banking feed instead of actually clicking on the transaction and saying what it was. AR aging and AP aging, I'm going to talk about those in a minute. Your opening balance equity should be 0. If you see anything here, it means that either after the file was set up, it wasn't zeroed out to retained earnings, or they made new inventory items and typed in the quantities instead of purchasing those new inventory items. I also see things here when somebody starts a new loan, and instead of creating the liability in the system, it starts out in opening balance equity. So you want to look for those, and then you know that, hey, they started a new loan this year and they didn't tell you. That's one of the places to find it. Okay. Now, another place to look is the books review. And this is kind of a cleanup tool and this is what QB Live uses also, where you can set this on monthly close, and then it shows you all the different things that need attention, helps you with your account reconciliations, helps you with your reviews. And then there's a cleanup mode as well. And I'm not going to go into detail here, but if you haven't checked this out, this may be a tool that you can use to speed up your life. And it's completely built into QBO, so it's free. Okay. Now, the next thing is, now let's talk about the places where these errors hide. So the first thing that I always do is look at my AR and AP reports, because nothing can be right if those are still hanging out. And just in a nutshell, I want to show you a couple things that I always keep an eye out for. So when I have my accounts receivable aging summary, I inevitably see tons of stuff in the 91 and over column. That means that your business owner has not been using good workflows, or they created invoices. Everything here you need to verify. Is it real? Is it truly outstanding? Does it need to be voided if you're on cash basis, or make a credit memo to bad debt if you're on accrual basis? But you want to get all of these out of there. The other one is this 0. You should not see zeros here. If you see zeros, that means that you have an invoice and it's been paid, but when you look at the payment itself, it was not applied to any of the invoices. It was just left hanging. Simple solve. You check off the invoice that it was actually for, and then save and close, and then it will go away, and that whole line item will just disappear from your AR report. There it is. It's gone. If I go back to the report, it's gone there too. So that's one of the things that I make sure that I do with every client. In the same way, for accounts payable, if you look at your accounts payable summary and the owner's like, no, 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 I don't owe Hackney any money, I know for a fact that I paid that, then here's what probably happened. Let me go look up Hackney. And in fact, I'm going to show you this shortcut. You can use the magnifying glass in the upper right, and you can actually pull up your vendor cards right from there without having to go to the vendor center and search. But here's the problem that I very frequently see is they had an open bill, but when it came in from the banking feed, they just manually categorized it and the bill was left open. So the fix is to edit that expense, and check this out. If you did never noticed it, there's actually a tool in the upper right-hand corner that opens up the drawer, and there's the bill, and I'll add the bill, and now I have just converted this check to a bill payment to pay off the bill. And so when I save and close, that bill will no longer be on the accounts payable report, and they will no longer owe us any money. So that are my first stage of my cleanup. Okay, the next thing that I do is I look at undeposited funds. And the way that I do that is not by looking at the balance sheet. I go up to the plus new button and I choose bank deposit. And there shouldn't be anything here unless it's actually current. What the reason why stuff gets stuck here is they go in through the banking feed and they say, "Oh, I received this money from this person." And then they're duplicating their revenue. The way that I find this is I run a profit and loss report. And come on up, profit and loss. And I will then let me go ahead and I'm going to do this for all dates just to make sure I've got the data that I need. Okay. Then what I do is I'll drill into the amount for the income categories where I suspect there is duplicated revenue. And what I'm looking for are things that say deposit. Because if it says deposit, it was not a sales receipt and it was not an invoice payment. It came in from the banking feed. And lo and behold, when I look at the bottom, sure enough, it was typed in. So I can go find those two transactions from that deposit date and check them off up here and then go to the bottom and trash can the bottom. And now I have taken out the duplicate revenue and then pulled in these two original payments. Now, the one thing that I want to watch out for here is if you've got past history here and you're not cleaning up those years, what you have to do is make an adjusting entry instead of editing the deposit. Don't edit the deposit. Instead, you would change this to the first of your current period, like January 1st, 2024, and then come down here and whatever the income account was that it was part of, I would then instead subtract the dollar amount, and then that clears them off of here, makes a $0 deposit, and compensates for the sales from the previous year, reducing your sales in the current year. So that is how to clean that up. Okay. Now I know that again, super, super duper fast, but that's what we're doing in this workflow con is how to find all these things that speed up your life. I do have a slide here that points out when you're looking at the register, you can see if it's done correctly. If it says split, it was probably done right. That's the multiple transaction checkoff at the top. If it came in from undeposited funds, that's also correct. Where you can tell that it's wrong is if you see a deposit that was put straight to a revenue account, that's what it looks like in the register when you have a duplicated deposit. So that's the one to watch out for, this bottom one right there. Okay, step 3 is proper reconciliations. I feel like I didn't do it. Proper reconciliations. I know I am preaching to the choir here on these, but what I want to show you is one little hint that I do that really helps. And so let me go to a reconciliation, and I'm going to when I'm in a reconciliation, the thing that you have to keep your eye out for are all the transactions that don't have the green boxes. And instead of sorting it by number, what I do is I come over to the payment header and I click on that payment header. And that way I group them by dollar amount. And that easily allows me to find all of the duplicates and recognize when it's in there and it shouldn't be. So I can find duplicates, I can find transactions that shouldn't be here, like here's that $500 duplicate, and then I can get rid of them. When you are reconciling, so I call it phase 1 and phase 2. Your clients don't understand phase 2. They just check off everything that is on the statement. You're the expert who knows that you have to handle everything that is not on the statement. But the other thing is, and this is what I was alluding to in the very beginning, you don't just reconcile your checking accounts, savings accounts, and credit cards. You need to reconcile your loans, your lines of credit. You also need to reconcile your payroll liabilities and sales tax liabilities. If you don't, then it will sit on the balance sheet absolutely forever. Maybe they categorize an expense accidentally into that liability account. They will never get the credit for that expense. They'll never get the tax deduction. So I always make sure that my all my liabilities and my pass-through accounts and my clearing accounts are all reconciled to zero as well. Now, since I only have 10 minutes left, I don't get to show you. I'm only on step 3. But in my class, I do show you how to do that. Okay, time for a poll. I'll see if I can answer some questions while the poll is going on. And oh, perfect. Okay. Reconciling your bank account means checking off the transactions on the bank statement, managing transactions not on the bank statement, or both. So while you are answering that, let me go see if I can pull in some of the questions. So somebody is asking, what is the proper way to get rid of those duplicates? So that's going to take some research. Is it something that you made manually and then was brought in from the banking feed instead of matching? Frequently, maybe it's a receipt, maybe it's a transfer that went to the wrong account. You have to research each one of those. I actually have a reconciling class. I don't have the link handy, but I have a class just on reconciling where I go through all of the analysis for knowing what caused the duplicate. And that is another great class to take because first I teach how to do the reconciliations, then I teach how to fix the reconciliations. Okay. For your poll, I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The vast majority of you got it right. It was both. You also have to manage transactions not on the banking statement. All right. The next thing is categorizing your transactions properly. Hopefully, all of you know that there is a reclassify tool. Up under the toolbox, here is reclassified transactions. Please, for the love of life, tell your accountant and CPA about this tool. I never want to see adjusting journal entries because then when I clean up the file, I have to reverse all of their adjusting journal entries. And so I teach everybody to come in here and actually change the expense account. If it's wrong, go ahead and reclassify and put it where it needs to be. I want to point out that if you have items in the wrong category up here, then it means your products and services are wrong. And when your products and services are wrong, there is an easy fix for that. And what I do is I go up to the gear and I turn on under show more. I make sure that you can see the income and the expense account. That shows you the mapping for where, when it shows up on an invoice or a sales receipt or an expense, where does it map to? And so if you see one here that, wait, like this one was put to handyman, but it's wrong, you can edit that and then change where it's actually going. Oops, not construction loan, construction income, and then make sure you check off always update this account in the history, and then it will pick up all of those transactions and move them to the correct income category. So that is the fix for income in the wrong places. Okay, next thing I do is I compare to past years. And the way that I do that is I go to the reports and I will run a report, let's say profit and loss. And what I'll do is all dates and then display columns by years. Let's do calendar years. And then run that report. And now what I'm seeing is the history of what's going on, and this gives us 2 opportunities. The first one is to look for anomalies that if I can see over the past couple years, "Hey, wait, this number is way too high or way too low," it probably means that you have something miscategorized somewhere else, and you need to go find that discrepancy and move it. That happens a lot with tax, payroll benefits, things like that. I also watch out for, um, like, dues and subscriptions versus computer software. Those tend to get combined together, and what I'll do is I'll look at this, but I'll have reclassify open in a different tab. I'll see the problem over here and then go to reclassify and fix it over here. When I am looking at these trends, I do usually skip 2020 and 2021 as the COVID blip years that are either higher or lower than normal. So I'll do my trend analysis going back to 2017, 18, 19, and then pick up in 2022, 23. Okay. The next set are end of year adjustments, and this isn't so much of a demo as just saying, here's some things to watch out for. So the first one is adjusting your inventory. Make sure that your clients do a hand count on the last day of their fiscal year, and then use the quantity adjustment tools to update the quantity numbers so that your cost of goods and your inventory counts are correct. I will also look at the depreciation and amortization, and in particular, what I'll do is I'll look for a balance I'll pull up the balance sheet in the exact same way. So balance sheet by all dates with columns by calendar year, and what I look for is I'll look in the fixed assets at the accumulated depreciation and, maybe sometimes they have their individual depreciation, but if those numbers have not changed, then the depreciation entries have never been put in the file. So you either need to get them from the CPA or have the CPA make them, or look on your tax form, there's a depreciation schedule from the previous year, and go ahead and make sure that that depreciation is entered and accommodated. I will also do the same thing for equity. You want to make sure that your owner contributions and owner distributions are not just accumulating indefinitely. You on the after you've closed the books for the year, you take whatever that December 31st balance is, and then um, and then zero it out on January 1st to retained earnings. So you move that amount to retained earnings on January 1st, which gives you a fresh start for the year so that when you're looking at this report, you can see what the draws and the contributions were for that year comparatively. So that was resetting equity. Then you close the books. After taxes are done, after the accountant has made any of their adjusting entries, you'll go in and, in the settings under advanced, you can lock the books or you can with a password, or you can just put up a warning, but it's nice to not have to change that information. Analyze your reports. I showed you some of the analysis that I do. I also mentioned trying to find that 20/80, figure out what were your best sellers, best customer profile, and build more of that into the following year. And then last but not least is make a backup. It's kind of a bonus step. If you're using QBO Advanced, there is a backup tool built into it. If you are not using QB Advanced, there's no easy way of making a backup, but I really like Rewind as my backup tool because I can make a full backup and then I have it with that date on it. Or maybe you use something like Export My Books and actually create a desktop hard copy of it. And then I also recently found an app called Strongbox, which exports your entire QBO file into this gigantic Excel spreadsheet with a separate sheet for every single table. So that way you have it all as a backup in Excel. So those are some of the things that I do. So, like I said, I do have that full course about all of these steps where I actually go through in detail and demo it and not just say it as fast as I can to fit in 30 minutes. And if you feel like you need more QBO information, I am doing this really unique class in November and December where I'm actually going to send you my textbook that I wrote in the mail. And we're going to, as a group, do it college style, where you're going to build real QBO files and do this kind of troubleshooting in real life hands on training. So, let's get our last poll in there. I'm sorry that I was not able to get to um, the questions that you were asking, but hopefully you all forgive me for that because hopefully I gave you a whole bunch of good information. So let me know, did you learn something today? Go ahead and answer that and let me know if you knew all of this or you picked up some nuggets or you've just learned a whole bunch of brand new stuff. All right. And while you are doing that, okay. So for some reason, the poll does not seem to be working. Um, but if you can put it in the chat so that I can see it, that would be great. Looks like I'm getting some good feedback. So um, thank you all, and I will see you in the next class.